Welcome to episode number 299 of Destination Linux, a video podcast show from the TuxDigital Network. If you're new to the show, Destination Linux is a discussion podcast perfect for all experience levels. Whether you're brand new to open source or a guru of Sudo, this is the podcast for you. My name is Jill.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Ryan.
And on this week's awesome episode of Destination Linux, we discuss advertising or promoting products in your distro. Is it okay or the start of something terrible? Then we will be taking a look at the latest version of Ubuntu. Plus, we have our tips, tricks, and software picks. All this and more coming up right now on Destination Linux to keep those penguins marching.
This week in our community feedback, we got an email from Jack. And if you want to send in your own feedback, you could go to tuxdigital.com/contact to get in touch with us. Or you can join the TuxDigital community forum by going to tuxdigital.com and clicking on the forum link at the top of the page. Jack goes on to say, giving us feedback from a prior episode, that there is a way that you can get the root privileges or pseudo privileges in Nautilus file manager and give us the way to do it. And the discussion was more of, why do we have to do workarounds to get it? Because there are extensions and other things.
Right.
But I still thought this was pretty cool. And when I tried it, it does work perfectly. So I figured we could share this with the community here. You're going to open GNOME files or Nautilus. Then you're going to click on other locations at the left pane. Now, I noticed I didn't have to do the other locations thing. On the side, it's towards the bottom. You can just hit Control L, and this is going to bring you up the address bar to make it editable in Nautilus. So you're just going to type in admin:///. And then that's going to allow you, it's going to prompt for a password and allow you to have administrative rights or sudo rights, basically right from the file manager there. So until we do have the option of having the GUI options in the file manager themselves or allowing a setting or something else I think we talked about in the discussion to allow people who want that feature right from the graphical user interface. If you do that admin workaround, that will allow you to mess around with root access right from your file manager, which if you do not know what you're doing, don't do it. That's the whole reason it's kind of locked down to begin with.
Yes.
But if you know what you're doing and or you just want to break stuff because it's a VM or a DigitalOcean droplet and you could just remake it, then go have fun with it. But it's kind of a cool workaround there that I didn't know about. I knew about the extensions and other things, but I didn't know about this one specifically. So.
Yeah, I didn't know about this either. I mean, I tried it in Dolphin. It doesn't work in Dolphin, but I mean, the Control L part does work because that's a standard universal shortcut for all file managers. But it's interesting that this is an option. When you activate this, I didn't try it myself because obviously I'm not running Nautilus right now. But when you do it, does it turn the entire file manager into admin mode? That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And it does visually seem like there's kind of a change to things because all of a sudden you can see all the stuff that wasn't there before. So it's not like you're still sitting in your home folder and you just see your normal document. So there's a clear visual cue that you're in something you're not supposed to. Well, no, not supposed to, but that we usually keep restricted. So people will know that they have that unless they probably write some script or something to keep it on all the time. Right. Again, I don't recommend doing that type of stuff. Now, some people do have it so that it's there all the time. I know Bo, for instance, does because he literally is a professional hacker. So he wants access to all of that right through the GUI at all times. But if you're not a professional, then just, use it when you absolutely need to.
Well, I had actually ran into this like many years ago. I remember doing this, and thank you, Jack, for bringing this to our attention. Because then I remembered, oh yeah, that was a thing. Putting in admin, and actually, I'm in Ubuntu Mate right now, and one of the reasons I do like Caja is that it has a right-click admin context menu already built in.
Like Ryan suggested, if you want to break stuff, what's a safe way to do that? Well, DigitalOcean is a great way because you can use their snapshotting system to easily go back and fix it anytime you mess stuff up, even if you do it on purpose. For some reason, that's what Ryan says people do. So this episode of Destination Linux is brought to you by DigitalOcean. Get started right now by going to do.co/tux2022. DigitalOcean is a fantastic platform. They have a comprehensive portfolio of compute, storage, database, and networking products that put your cloud infrastructure in capable hands so you and your teams can get back to doing what matters most, building world-changing apps that grow your business. And in addition to the snapshotting features that allows you to break stuff and not have to worry about it, DigitalOcean also has predictable pricing, robust product documentation, and services that developers love. For example, I love the DigitalOcean Marketplace, where you can find all sorts of great software that you can easily set up as droplets in just a few clicks. It is awesome. Plus, at DigitalOcean, you can get support at every stage of growth. Whether you have a team of just yourself or a team of 1,000 people, with DigitalOcean, you can get growing with their simple, powerful cloud computing services. And as a listener of the Destination Linux podcast and a member of the TuxDigital community, you can get started for free. In fact, it's even better than free because DigitalOcean is giving you a $100 60-day free credit when you go to do.co/tux2022. That's do.co/tux2022. So again, go get started with that $100 free credit on DigitalOcean's awesome cloud platform by going to do.co/tux2022.
So Ubuntu is in the news this week, and it's, last week and this week with this new controversy. I love controversy. Controversy sells.
It does.
And this controversy
It does.
is just, it's going to blow your mind. Imagine you're in your terminal, you're typing sudo apt update, and all of a sudden you get an advertisement for new shoes, and you get an advertisement for a chair and a stool, or where you could get 50% off a local restaurant near you. Now,
Perfect.
None of that is actually happening.
Yeah, none of that's true.
None of that is real. But that's what people are fearful of. People are fearful that what Ubuntu did here, which was a much, much, much milder version of what we're talking about, is going to create a future in which that could be what people see down the road. So what actually happened is in the apt update process, some people were seeing a message talking about Ubuntu Pro. Now, we're going to get into what Ubuntu Pro is because it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a newer thing, but they've opened it up some more to people. And so a lot of consumers probably haven't been nearly aware of what it is and what it does and all of that. But essentially, it just gives you a little message saying, hey, you can try Ubuntu Pro. You're going to get more security enhancements or updates, something along those lines. And that's it. But people are furious because, it's canonical. Really, anything canonical does, people are going to get furious about, number one. But
true.
number two, there are some people who legitimately have a fear that this is a slippery slope situation. Okay, today it's Ubuntu Pro. Tomorrow it's, the local restaurant example that I gave. Do we want distros spamming messages when you're doing things like update or upgrade in there, even if it is for a service that benefits the end user? Because Ubuntu Pro, it's free, and it could benefit the end user to have these additional security updates. So should this be allowed in distros? Michael, you've been around long enough, 20-something years or whatever, using Linux, 20 billion years, whatever it is. Tell me, do you think this should be allowed in distros? Does this highly offend you?
No, it does not. So this is an interesting topic because I am usually not in the popular scope of people who typically don't like these kinds of things, because I also have a background in marketing, and I look at what is
You
an
are
ethical...
the enemy.
No, I'm the ethical marketer, like how a marketing can be done right. I think this is fine because it's just text. It's not like they're actually tracking you for anything. And it also isn't like, it's not an advertising it's annoying or out of nowhere. Like you're using Ubuntu and it's telling you, hey, you could use this free service to improve your experience on Ubuntu just by signing. Like that kind of thing I don't feel is, egregious or anything like that. They're not basically just putting this everywhere of these advertisements that are just plastered in your face as soon as you boot the machine. Like that would be absolutely annoying to just turn on your computer and all of a sudden start getting pop-ups in your main menu, like Windows. So like there is a
or
case
where they just pre-install stuff, like where it's
exactly.
just, hey, we've signed you up for Ubuntu Pro and downloaded the app to your desktop. Enjoy.
I mean, I will be annoyed when I open my Ubuntu and I click the dashboard little pop-up for the menu and then Candy Crush pops up. That would be pretty annoying.
Would you though? Because Candy Crush is pretty dope. Jill, what do you think about this situation? Should we be outraged, or is this
I think Michael is wrong.
Good, Jill.
What?
I love
But
this.
I will agree. This is it. It's really not an ad that generates canonical, money. That is something after I've been thinking about this a lot, and it actually is more like a public service announcement. Let people know as opposed to an ad. But I do think that it's an overstep to insert a promo for a canonical service at the command line. Especially when the terminal is actually a safe place where you go to escape annoyances.
Interesting point. I didn't think about that. So
Yeah.
let me throw this in there, Jill. People say that, or who are upset about this, that they're kind of upset too about the apt situation because Canonical doesn't own apt, and therefore they shouldn't be basically taking a promotion opportunity on the top of apt to begin with.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Mike or Jill?
I do think it belongs more in Snap repository. I
Yeah.
think you are right about that. Yeah.
Well, the
do you
snaps,
think,
you're not going to be
Michael?
running that. The snaps automatically
know.
update, so you're not even going to be running
Update,
snap update.
They auto update. Yeah.
But
That's not
the
an
thing
issue.
about apt is interesting because there are two different versions of apt, and a lot of people aren't aware of this. So there's the apt that Debian made in like the late 90s, and then there's the apt package binary that is what people are using. So if you've like in the past couple of years, it's become a very standard thing for people to say just use sudo apt install, sudo apt upgrade, that sort of thing. But it used to be sudo apt get install and etc. And there was apt cache, apt search, and just a bunch of other things that were kind of a messy situation. And the messy situation is the original version that was from the 90s and that Debian made. However, the apt binary package was made by a canonical employee. So in like 2014. So in a way, it's not about like owning it, but they are the people who make it. So if they made a change to it that's only on their distribution, I don't see how it's a problem. And I don't see how it's a problem anyway if they're just changing it on their distribution. If they put it in Debian, where when you loaded up Debian apt update and then it said you should use Ubuntu Pro, that would be completely
Something different.
annoying. And I get it why people would be mad. But that's not what's happening. It's just Ubuntu Pro being promoted in Ubuntu. So I'm okay with that. And I think overall, the advertising aspect, people kind of take like this really weird, rigid position of saying no advertising ever, never, but then they also want everything for free. Like you're going to have to find a way to balance some level of there needs to be monetization, there needs to be funding to create these things. And if you're refusing to use ads and you're refusing to pay anything at all, then like what do you expect it to be? Like just not good?
Well, I think Jill makes an interesting point, though, because I'm on the fence. My position is I'm not quite sure how to feel about this. On one side of the fence, I think what Jill said is very accurate. Don't mess with the terminal. That's where we go. We're doing business. We need to focus on what we're doing. Don't give me messages unless something's broken, errored, or I need to do another step that I don't need there. But if Ubuntu had put this during the install process, I wouldn't have even blinked. And if people got upset about it, like, hey, by the way, do you want to sign up for Ubuntu Pro while you're here installing? Sure. Like that seems like a very logical place to put it. So I do feel that is interesting. I think the slippery slope thing is always a tough argument too. And that's what people utilize against this type of thing. And we see the slippery slope is not just an invalid argument that doesn't happen. We see it in the privacy and security world all the time, where this actually becomes a slippery slope. Somebody says, I want to protect children, so we're going to pass this law. Okay, great. And then the company uses that same thing to start advertising to people and doing all this other, pulling people's metadata and all this other stuff. So this good reason becomes a really bad reason because they abuse it. And let's be honest, Canonical, the whole Amazon fiasco, this isn't a company that's free from controversy when it comes to advertising. So this one, did it overstep? Maybe not. But in the next one, are we going to have like, hey, use our short link Amazon link so we can get some money when you're buying products on Amazon announcement?
Okay. Let me clarify what I'm saying, because I feel like I'm going to be just like taken to court or whatever in the comments or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is not that advertising is automatically good. I'm just saying that not every piece of advertising is automatically horrible and you should never do it at all. So in certain cases, yes, there have been cases, and specifically with Ubuntu, where they took it too far. And like you talked about the Amazon thing, a lot of people weren't aware that basically when Ryan started doing Linux, there was the Amazon thing where it was just a button and that sort of. But if you go back a few years before that, they actually had like advertising results when you searched inside of your system, which was absolutely irritating and a complete ignoring the user experience. So when you would type in just a couple letters of an application you wanted to open, you would start getting Amazon results in your desktop like search results. It was very weird. So
that is rough.
Yeah.
In that situation, I 100% say they shouldn't have done that, and it took them way too long to revert that decision. But at the same time, this is a different sort of thing. It's just a couple lines of text. It's relevant to what they're doing at the time. For example, one of the values of Ubuntu Pro is to get automatic upgrades. And if you're doing an upgrade manually, it's kind of saying, hey, if you want to do this automatically, you could sign up for Ubuntu Pro. So it is relevant to what they're doing in the terminal at that time. Now, if they were doing this on any kind of variation of any command and it just popped up every time you did something, that would be irritating. But it is relevant. So I feel like it's a very like minimal gray area, but at the same time, I think it's very little annoyance overall. I think people are blowing it out of proportion.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Another complaint I did have is that there is no way to opt out of it. That is a thing.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
And there's something else, and this is something I don't mind, is that Ubuntu Pro, is actually very useful to let people know about. But the GUI already does this for managing system updates. So there's already little pop-ups and information on using Ubuntu Pro. So.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, to me, it makes sense to have it either way, because if you're doing a terminal or doing a GUI, I don't think that the terminal is this, glorious
sanctuary.
Dome.
It should be
sanctuary.
Why?
It should be.
Like, I think it depends on how far it's gone. Like, and to me, a couple lines of text is not too much.
It's okay.
But at the same time, it can be you can cross that line, and I understand that. If they start putting ASCII art or like start doing animated stuff like the Steam engine going past like that, the LS thing. Like,
but
if
I
they
mean,
did,
what's keeping them from taking it to the next step, right?
Yeah.
Someone's asking in our chat. By the way, we're live here every Sunday. If you want to see our beautiful faces, or Jill's beautiful face, and then Michael and me,
and then we're here
you
too.
can come here. Yeah. But they ask that, does this show up every time you open a terminal session? The answer is no. I actually installed the new version of Ubuntu and didn't see it at all when I was doing update and upgrade and stuff. Jill said she has seen it. I've actually not seen it yet. So I think it's kind of random when it pops up. I don't know if it's a timer, if you see it once or whatnot. I think that this particular thing is just people are worried about what it could mean from a company that has kind of done some things in the past that are very questionable with this type of stuff. But I was just like, it's Ubuntu. I mean, I'm not surprised. But if we saw this with another distro, would we change our position? If we were talking right now about Fedora promoting RHEL in the developer edition of RHEL every time you ran an update command, would you be mad, or would you still be like, no, that's fine? Is this something where it's just because it's Ubuntu and there's some history there, or is this we would have the same? Jill, would you have the same position regardless of who it was?
Yeah. I would definitely, because overall, universally, I just don't want that in my terminal.
Yeah. Now, one thing I would be in support of is if you're in KDE, for instance, and you're probably having experience that KDE provides, and you would be better off in GNOME, of course. So in KDE, every time you ran an update, it gave you an advertisement, hey, have you tried GNOME recently, which is a superior desktop environment. That would be an okay ad, because you're trying to really help the user get to something superior.
I don't understand. That statement you just made does not make any sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about. So,
by the way, for everyone, I'm joking. I'm picking on Michael because he loves KDE. I don't really believe that. Keep your hate mail. I know you opened your email and you were really jamming on the keyboard, but it was a joke. All right.
But
I think we should take it a little further and promote all the different window managers and that you can install in Linux, like a window maker or Flexbox. Might as well.
i3WM. See, I would be in support of that. That's where my bias comes in. If it was like, stop using Fedora or any of these distros that don't have i3WM by default, that I'm in support of.
Hey, TWM for the win.
Yes.
I think
poison.
that I think that your question
absolutely.
about like whether or not you would be okay with if a different distro did it, and I personally have the same position. I think that as long as you're not stepping over the line, then it's fine to do. I think really that if they were using this as a way to make revenue, that would probably be annoying because it's in the terminal. But if they were in the terminal and then I had a pop up for some random company like one of those meal kit every month services things, like if that popped up, I'm like, okay, it's too much. But it's something that's relevant to the user at the time, so that doesn't really bother me. It depends on what exactly would be shown to the user. So I am not pro advertising, but I'm also not anti advertising entirely, is what I'm saying. So there's
a great segue to our sponsor, Meal Thing Every Time thing. If you
Meal
too
Thing
want
once a
Meal
month.
Thing sent to you once a month, you could say, okay, let's talk about what Ubuntu Pro is, because I think there's a lot of people who have no idea what Ubuntu Pro is.
Well, it's a meal kit that you get every 2 weeks.
Every month.
Yes, every month you get an Ubuntu meal kit. That would be great, actually. So first, it's a service that's now in public beta. So public beta being the key word. It offers 10 years of security coverage to an additional 23,000 packages outside of just the packages in the main OS. So including things like Ansible, Apache, Tomcat, Docker, all of that stuff. You get an additional security coverage on all of those apps, 23,000 of them out there. It also offers compliance and hardening by including tools from compliance management. And this is especially important for those who are in regulated environments and audited environments. It is free for a certain amount of users, but then it costs money. So it's not something that's totally free. Michael, you said something about generating revenue. I mean, I think this is the idea behind it is
Totally. I mean, it is
they
100%
could generate revenue with it.
It's a revenue thing, but it's not for the sole purpose of just saying, hey, someone paid us to talk about it. It's in terms of the meal kit argument is I would be anti that because it would be clear that they're just there to serve me an ad. Whereas this is that they're providing a service that might be relevant to the user, and that's why it's a little bit different. But it's free for up to 5 machines or 50 if you're an official community member of Ubuntu. And to be an official community member, you need to apply and then show that you have contributing to Ubuntu over a certain amount of time for a certain amount of stuff.
Do we qualify? We talk about Ubuntu. I feel like that's I'm going to go apply and see if they deny.
I think it's worth a shot. It's worth a shot, Ryan.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And, Mark Shuttleworth actually said about Ubuntu Pro, quote, since we first launched Ubuntu LTS with 5 years free security coverage for the main OS, our enterprise customers have asked us to cover more and more of the wider open source landscape under private commercial agreements. Today, we are excited to offer the benefits of all that work free of charge to anyone in the world with a free personal Ubuntu Pro subscription.
There you go. So,
I think there is value to it. It's not it's not like it's completely worthless advertisement. There is value to it. And I do think that the security updates for that many packages is really cool. But I want to make it clear for everyone, it doesn't mean that they're packaging updates for every single application whenever there's a new update. It's when there are security issues that have to be addressed at that given time. But if you're looking for it to automatically update any package whenever there's a new, that's not really what's going to happen.
Okay, so one more question on this. If you run Ubuntu, should you be why not sign up for Ubuntu Pro? Is there any reason, listeners out there, if you have less than 5 machines, you shouldn't be utilizing this Ubuntu Pro? Why not just sign up for it and set it up?
That's interesting. I think there is a argument to say both ways, whether you if you want to use Ubuntu Pro because you're using a system for longer than 5 years, for sure, then that case, absolutely. But for most people that I've talked to who use Ubuntu, if they're using Ubuntu LTS, they're going to be updating every 2 years anyway to the next LTS. So it might not be as effective to them because it says that I'm not sure what's how much different the Ubuntu Pro, those extra packages, are those only if they are using the Ubuntu Pro, or are they in the agreement of the 5-year LTS like Mark talked about in the quote that we gave. I'm not sure exactly how that works out. If it is only in Ubuntu Pro, then it kind of makes sense that you could do it. But also the other aspect is that if you are, you're going to be updating frequently anyway. So especially if you do every 6 months, then it might not be worth it.
But you have to give your information away. You have to sign up for an account, right? So you have to give them some information. So people who are completely against giving any information at all about themselves or what they're doing probably wouldn't want to go this route.
That's also true, yeah.
One last thing. When you look at other distros that are based on Ubuntu, so they're not promoting Ubuntu, but they're based on Ubuntu, like Pop! OS, let's say. Are they going to be getting these ads for Ubuntu Pro, even though they aren't Ubuntu technically? They are, but they're not.
It's a good question, and it's hard to answer based on I haven't been able to look at the code of apt and see how they've implemented this. But I do feel like it wouldn't likely happen for a couple of reasons. Either Ubuntu thought about this in the first place and made it check to see if it's Ubuntu, and if not, I think that the distributions who are based on it, like Pop! OS or Elementary or Linux Mint, would take it into account that they would make sure that it's not doing it before it gets to the user. So I'm curious if those distributions had to make that change or not.
Let me ask, if it does, at the point where you see Pop! OS and others where they can't easily remove it, and you find out that that's happening in other distros based on Ubuntu, does that change your stance on this whole thing?
Yes. If they can't easily remove it, yes, it would. Because it's not an ad on Ubuntu for Ubuntu. If it was an ad for Ubuntu on something else, that would be crossing the line. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that I have this strong line in the sand of advertising is great everywhere, but I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there are certain types of advertising that are okay. And I think that this is a example of one, but you could easily cross that line and doing that, putting in other distributions, even derivatives and all that. Yes, that would be crossing the line.
Yeah, it's that gray area.
Yep. Well, if you want to be more like Jill and me and less like Michael, you need to check out Bitwarden. If you care about your security and privacy, then you need to be using an open source project.
I care about security and privacy too, buddy.
If you want to be like Michael, Jill, and Ryan, you need to check out bitwarden.com/tux. That's /TUX. A password manager software allows you to have peace of mind knowing that your online accounts are safe and secure. Bitwarden provides you tools to manage all your passwords in a secured vault. It can auto-generate those passwords and auto-generate your usernames as well. Because think about it. If you use the same username for every site, then a hacker has half your credentials to get into your site by just finding out what your username is. So auto-generate those just like you do your passwords. But how do you keep track of all that? You do it with the ease of Bitwarden, and it works on all of your devices, whether web browser, mobile apps, desktop applications, even the command line. So you can run Bitwarden in the command line, and then when you do an update, you can get the little message from Ubuntu saying to go to Pro. You can ignore that and then just keep getting into your passwords with Bitwarden. Bitwarden seals and encrypts private data with end-to-end encryption before it ever leaves your device, so you know you're the only person with access to your data. Go to bitwarden.com/tux to get started for free. And I mean free, as in you don't need a credit card or any of that stuff. You can just sign up. But if you have the ability, they have a $10 per year premium account, 1 gigabyte encrypted file storage, 2-step login key with YubiKey. You two have Duo. That's how I get into my Bitwarden, is with the YubiKey. Absolutely love it. Vault Health Reports, Bitwarden Authenticator, TOTP, Priority Customer Support, and so much more. Less than $1 per month. Amazing software. I see this in all of these sites that do security and privacy where they're doing their top apps for the year. I saw this recently on a Twitter ad for one of those articles, and guess what it had at the top? Bitwarden was right there. Go to bitwarden.com/TUX and get started right now. And thanks to Bitwarden for sponsoring this episode of Destination Linux.
Yes, thank you very much, Bitwarden, for sponsoring this episode right after we talk about advertising being bad. people.
Wait, we're not putting this in their terminal. Like, but that's a good question, Canonical. Yeah. Can we buy some ad spot on your terminal?
Can we, when you apt update, can it say watch destination Linux? That would be awesome. And we would completely change our opinion. I'm just kidding. We're kidding. Yeah. Speaking of Ubuntu, they have a new release of 22.10 that's dropped this week. It's the Kinetic Kudus release. And you get a lot of updates, but the biggest change that is happening with 22.10 versus the previous version of 22.04 is the introduction of GNOME 43. And there's a lot of stuff that's been changed in GNOME 43. Like, for example, there's been a lot of new applications ported from GTK3 to GTK4. But the biggest change in GNOME 43 is definitely the quick settings menu. You can change a lot of stuff much easier than it used to be, where you can do change your Wi-Fi connections really quickly. You can also change the audio devices without having to install a separate extension to do it right from the quick setting menu, and a lot of other cool things. I think that it's interesting that we're talking about the latest release right after we're talking about the controversy of it.
The Ubuntu extravaganza.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it's all Ubuntu, the whole episode. So all those running Ubuntu will love this. Michael, I mean, on your show, This Week in Linux, which, by the way, you need to be subscribed to immediately. This Week in Linux, if you want all of the Linux good news out there. You talk about one of your favorite things, which is also one of my favorite things, and that's Pipewire with Wire Plumber by default. Why is Pipewire so amazing? On the professional audio scale, being able to utilize all the jack tools easily right out of the box is what makes Pipewire and Wire Plumber such an amazing addition. And Ubuntu, a lot of other distros have already moved here. Ubuntu's finally got this now as default, which is really awesome because this show, for instance, is very unique in how it's recorded. We've talked about that in a prior episode of how we do this show. You can check it out. But we do this really weird mix minusing from other rooms and things to bring our patrons in. They're in a separate stadium, 60,000 square foot virtual stadium. And they're watching us live on a separate video feed, which is different than the delay in YouTube and everything else, and have a chat room with us. But they're piped in. And we do all of that because of Pipewire. Before Pipewire, me and Michael spent I don't know, probably a combination of 16 hours trying to figure out how to properly pipe. Whoa. So
you undersold
maybe more.
It was maybe I think at least a few hours over every day for the course of a couple weeks. So it might seem like 16 hours. We should talk about how long it actually took us to do that amount of time. It was a lot of testing because it was just a lot to do. I bought so much
equipment and everything because this isn't a simple mix minus. You can go on YouTube, see a quick little mix minus, and be done with it. But we're mixing in an entire room full of people back and forth between two separate applications. Completely different experience.
We're doing a mix minus mix minus mix minus.
Yes, exactly. And all of that is a few clicks because of Pipewire. So that gives you an example, in Windows and Mac OS, which requires Mac OS, by the way, you have to buy a completely separate audio app to be able to capture audio and things. It's just amazing that people don't get mad about this stuff, but it's way more difficult. Now in Linux, it's actually easier to do things like what we're doing on the professional side in seconds. That it would take you, even if you knew what you were doing in Windows, an hour or more to get those type of things set up. So it's, when I tell you that Pipewire and Wire Plumber is a game changer, it's like what Valve and Codeweavers was for gaming. Pipewire and Wire Plumber is for audio on the Linux side, but absolutely. It allows us to do on a professional side.
Yeah. And, I'm running right now Ubuntu Mate 22.04 LTS, but I've been running Jack for years. And I am so looking forward to the Ubuntu's with Pipewire. That is just, it's gonna make it so much easier for me.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I don't have to, install a special kernel, low latency kernel, just to use, Jack. Now I can use it through Pipewire.
Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome. Pipewire, it changes a lot for many configurations. It also, for those who are curious, it isn't just a complete replacement of everything. So what it does is it's compatibility with both Jack and Pulse Audio. So you get all the benefits of both without having to worry about the configuration and the setup and installation and all that of changing your system to be able to support it. So that's the real big thing about Pipewire is, yes, it supports these things. And most importantly, is that it does it without you having to do anything. And that is like game changing. Like, it's fantastic. Now, I am kind of disappointed that it didn't get in 2204, because that means the LTS release distros are not going to get it for another couple of years. But I am happy to see that Ubuntu has now pushed it in their default, because it will prompt a lot of people to check it out, and that's fantastic.
Well, Ubuntu's been off my radar entirely because of not having basically the ability to utilize Pipewire, Wire Plumber out of the box. Now, people say, well, you can go install that and do that stuff yourself. You can, but it's not the same. It's not the same. True. And there were bugs and issues with doing that from the professional side. It may work for your regular audio when you're watching YouTube or headphones or whatever, but there were issues with it in the way that it was implemented, not as part of the distro, that Fedora didn't have. So to me, Ubuntu's been literally off of my radar this entire time, really for the past couple of years, because it's been unusable for me from that standpoint. But now it's kind of back on my radar. So I went and installed it. And I got to tell you, there were some moments where I was like, man, I miss some of the things Ubuntu does so darn well. And let me tell you what they do better than anybody else, period. There is no argument here. Don't argue, Michael. And that's their installation process. Their installation process is so much better.
Ryan, I'm going to have to just stop you right there and say I agree completely. Continue.
Yes. Their installation process is better than any other distro, not by a little bit, but by miles. It's so well curated. It's so simple, yet all the advanced options are there. It makes sense whether you're coming from Mac OS or Windows or Chrome OS. It doesn't matter. Like it just makes sense. You're not clicking random things to set things up and not realizing why the next button's not lighting up because you didn't click in the hard drive and then click the drive that you really want. And none of that junk. But all the advanced features are still there for those people who want it. Like, Ubuntu does installation better than anybody. Number two, when I first booted into it, the wallpaper they chose, whoever is doing the art for Ubuntu, absolutely gorgeous. Like, beautiful artwork. The Kudus grazing art piece, which isn't the default one, but there's one where it's like a sunset and there's Sudo on this hill, and the artistry is just absolutely gorgeous. The new settings panel, GNOME, is very welcome to me. Like, I always have to install an extension to be able to change audio inputs and outputs, and now that GNOME has given us that back, that's an amazing option. Now, I fear GNOME will take it away, because if you know GNOME, GNOME giveth and GNOME taketh away. But, for now we have it until, other news comes out about that. But the only thing that really bugged me, and I did not expect this to bug me, if you look in the past episodes, I've supported snaps. I've been supportive of Flatpaks, really any of the universal apps I can see a purpose for. But I got to tell you, this whole thing with the snaps is really not good. The situation was really bad. For instance, I click Firefox in a brand new install after doing an apt update and an apt upgrade, and it just sat there and spun and spun and spun, and I don't know if it was ever going to stop. So I kill the process and click the app again, and it spins and spins and spins, and nothing happens until eventually I just launch it from the terminal, and then it takes forever to open, but finally does open, and then from there I can use the icon again. So this snap integration stuff, it's just not working canonical. Like, you got to pull back, because I also did some research and have found out, and I know a lot of the experienced people are going to be like, yeah, we knew this, that snaps are not really universal. Right. And if you take, for instance, the server instances of Snap, where I think Snap absolutely accelerates, right? If you want to drop a server like a Nextcloud server or something else, Snap makes it so simple. But if you're not using Ubuntu, you do not have, likely in your distro, a true sandbox experience, which means you have applications running with root access across your entire machine. And that's because snaps rely so heavily on AppArmor, and AppArmor is not universally in all these other distros. And even some of them that do have AppArmor, the way they implement it is different than Ubuntu. So you have actually the exact opposite of what a snap is supposed to provide. You've actually created a security hole in your system by using snaps if you're not using Ubuntu. And that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation to be in, but the snap system is really made for Ubuntu. Now, you can install snaps in other distributions, but they don't work exactly the same way. And there are some distributions have taken in consideration the confinement issue, but the confinement is still not in the same way that it does in Ubuntu. And like you said, that some people do the app armor in a different way, which means that the support for Snap specifically are not going to be there. And there are certain things that, like, for example, Fedora has done with SE Linux to improve the confinement, but it's still not the same experience. But it is interesting because the Snap experience I had with Firefox it took a while, but I guess I'm just more patient than you, and it was fine for me. But but it did take a little bit of time to load it up, and that was kind of annoying. But once it did, it ran just fine as I was expecting. But the thing about snaps that's really cool is the server stuff, like you're talking about. This server using snaps on the server is so nice. Now
Updates so easy.
It's also
Updates
just easy to install. It's configured specific for, like, the Nextcloud example is the best example to give because Nextcloud is a nightmare to install in like the general sense of it. And with the Snap, it's just Snap install Nextcloud and that's it. It's super smooth. So I do think there is a place for snaps in the servers area
there is.
For sure. So we're not saying that snaps are terrible or whatever.
No. But they're not what
There's
they
a
claim
place.
to be. That's what I'm worried about is, and like you said, there are certain distros that have done mitigations, but there are distros who haven't. But people are utilizing snaps with the idea universally that they have a sandboxed application when it's not necessarily actually happening. And that creates more of a security issue in there. Now, listen, I use snaps for server stuff all the time especially for Nextcloud, because it's just so much simpler. But what I'm telling people is if you're going to use snaps, you need to be in Ubuntu and use snaps, really, in my opinion, to have the security, make sure the security and things that you're wanting to do are there, which when I'm saying that makes me also say this is not really a universal app format to begin with.
Right. I would say that it's a format you can install in other distributions, but it is not universal for sure because it's not the same everywhere. And it is interesting because I use snaps as well in Fedora, and there are times where if you're not using Ubuntu, like the fonts don't load properly on dialog pop-ups.
Yeah,
so it's just a bunch of square boxes that you can't read anything, and you have no idea what the pop-up is. It's like, warning.
Feature, Michael.
Good luck figuring out what this means. Like there are certain issues that I wish snaps would address. And overall, I think that my preference is definitely Flatpaks, but that's also more specifically for the desktop. And I think that if Canonical were to pivot and say, hey, snaps are made for the server, Flatpaks are for the desktop, we would have a fantastic experience because that's really where they both shine.
Mm-hmm. So true, Michael. In fact, on my Ubuntu machines, I usually uninstall Snapd. I don't want to deal with it on my.
I love that about you, Jill.
Yeah, yeah. So in fact,
with
with Firefox, I install the binaries from the Firefox website, but I do have snaps installed on a server because again, that's where it shines.
Just makes it so easy.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like is the whole dock and the look of Ubuntu, kind of going back to some positive things. I didn't mean to go on a Snap soapbox. I know there's a lot of people that hate Snap unjustifiably. I just had the experience they've been complaining about for the first time. So anyway, so the dock looks, really nice. Nautilus looks really nice. They've done a lot of graphical updates and things, and I can tell like the work that the team's done there on the interfaces is spectacular. There are little things that really bug me in a desktop environment. And one of those is like you can move the launcher from the left side of your screen down to the bottom from settings. But then it moves the application launcher over to the right all the way. Mm-hmm. Now, I want my application launcher where my mouse generally spends its default position, which is on the left side. Mm-hmm. But there's no setting to go change that application launcher over to the left side that's built into the GUI. You actually have to become root and do this long command thing to move the application launcher over to the left. Now, you can move every other application on the launcher where you want it, except the application launcher itself, which is really annoying to me. Like that really, I got to tell you, I was like a little volcano, and it was slowly erupting as I couldn't figure out how to move the stupid application launcher, the simple thing that I'm like, surely you just click it and hold and drag, or you right click to get the settings, or if I go into the Ubuntu launcher setting, it's going to be there, but it's not. And I'm Googling it. I'm like, why am I having to Google this, people? Like, come on.
It's interesting that you're talking about this, because I would like to ask you something, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Aren't you the guy who loves defaults and just sticks with defaults? What's with this changing stuff, huh?
Yeah, and you need to install dash to panel.
Jill, it's not polite to point, okay?
Dash to dock, dash to panel.
Yeah, that's what I normally do, Jill, but I thought, why do I have to do that now? I don't have to use an extension now for the audio switcher. Maybe the GNOME team has made it so that these basic features that every other desktop environment in the world have, I can now just do. Except they always got me somewhere. They're like, gotcha. You can't make that one little change. Gotcha.
There are things that you would expect people to do, and when you can't do them, it is going to be frustrating, and I totally get that. I'm just kind of surprised that you just didn't leave it alone. Because you're known as the one who installs XFCE and touches nothing and changes
nothing.
nothing.
Here's my mouse.
So
I get on my computer, my hand is here, and my mouse is now on the left side. Now to open my applications, I have to look at that. Look at that movement. I practically have to drink water in between getting my cursor all the way over to the right side to click that launcher or hit the super key.
Don't you use Terminal, bro?
Don't you use Terminal, bro? Oh man, Jill is on me. All right, and one more bug I came across is fractional scaling. So with fractional scaling on, it gave me 100% or 200%, but when I turned fractional scaling off, it gave me 100%, 200%, or 300%. None of that to me is fractional scaling.
That's not fractional scaling, no.
So I think that's broke. At least it was broke in my installs. So fractional scaling, might want to check that out, Ubuntu. But otherwise, it's Ubuntu. I mean, the application defaults are great. The look of it is better than it's ever looked before. There's definitely some great features in there, but there's definitely some things I would like to see changed. And I love your idea, Michael. Snaps for server, Flatpaks for desktop. Let's do it. Let's make this happen. We've declared it.
It'd be like chocolate and peanut butter. The perfect combination.
Is that the perfect combination? It is, I guess. Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, I mean, chocolate and peanut butter is amazing.
Reese's
what are you talking
peanut
about?
butter cups. I don't know. For some reason, when you said it, I'm imagining a peanut butter sandwich and somebody spreading peanut butter and then chocolate on it. And I was like, no, it's supposed to be something else. It's jelly.
I meant
jelly.
Just peanut butter and chocolate.
Nobody uses that example. People say it's like peanut butter and jelly. Nobody goes, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. I had never heard that. You know, it took me a minute.
That's a fair point. That is a fair point. Peanut butter and jelly would have made more sense because then it would make clear about what you're referring to. But like Reese cups are amazing. So
it's true. Have you ever put them in the freezer, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're even better. It's crazy.
Yeah. Somehow.
Wow.
It's that coldness of the chocolate and everything. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Jill.
This tangent might be removed from the episode. Just say
no.
Yes. Aw.
No, I might leave it in. Who knows? It depends if we have time or not.
Do you look around at empty Coke bottles, bowls of half-eaten ramen, and clutter all over your room and wish you could just start over? Well, then we have the game for you. It's called Hermit Home Designer, and it is a story-based game that lets you design a perfectly organized home by dragging and dropping around statues and decor to your heart's delight. Reimagine what your bedroom could be in this free-to-play adventure made for people like Michael, hermits.
No.
Or for those with social anxiety. True on both counts. Michael being a hermit and...
I'm so confused right now.
I did not write that, Michael. Okay, I did.
You
I
did?
wrote that.
I was like, I'm saying, like, doesn't seem like Jill's savageness. So,
do you have bowls of ramen and Coke bottles sitting around your room?
I
Michael?
haven't had ramen in, I don't know, a long time. I mean, I like ramen, but there's a lot of sodium in ramen, so just keep that in mind.
True.
But it's funny because when I first saw this was going to be in the show, and Ryan was like, "Hey, check out the game." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So I check it out, and this is my reaction. What?
Yeah.
What is this?
Oh, it's a really fun game. Actually, the theming of the game is done in the kawaii aesthetic, which I personally love. Look at my computer studio and all my plushy penguins, my gaming setup behind me and in front of me. I'm very kawaii penguin aesthetic. So, I loved this game. I thought it was fun. And it's just a nice, relaxing experience. And it has a lot of really good, it kind of goes in depth on the main character's personality and what she's dealing with and with social anxiety. So it's a good teaching experience as well. Not just for hermits like Michael.
You could be a better designer, Michael. Think about it. Like you
Yeah. I can work on my interior design skill. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. That's something I definitely need to put on my resume for sure. So I need to work on that.
Yeah, that you're a hermit home designer.
That I'm a hermit home designer. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, Jill, when you played this game, just curious, did you make your room? Like, was there an option to make your room full of penguin plushies and other things, or how did you design it?
It didn't have penguin plushies, but it did have sushi plushies and teddy bears and other plushies that I like. It didn't have penguins, though. But what I did is I actually made a mock-up of this room.
Oh, nice. You're
Yeah.
like, how do I create the perfect room? I create the room I already created. I
Yes.
love it. I love it.
Nice. That's like Jill is satisfied with her room right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Also, we need to make sure we submit a bug report to get penguins in there because
Yeah, definitely.
you're missing
A lot of
a lot
times-
of opportunity right now.
A lot of times the developers actually comment in our YouTube or other things that thank you for highlighting their games. So they may be watching this. And if you do,
possible.
we need penguin plushies and with the big DL emblem on them would be cool too. Don't forget that part.
In this game, it does support Linux out of the box, but it needs to support the Linux penguin aesthetic.
Yes.
I want penguin plushies.
Of course you do. And for the developers listening to this, if you need a reminder as you're doing all your development work that you need to put those penguin plushies into your game, then you need to check out our software spotlight, Reminduck.
Yes,
Reminduck.
absolutely,
Reminduck.
Ryan.
You got to remember your stuff in an adorably annoying way. That's their tagline. I didn't write that. Reminduck is a simple reminder app made to be quick and easy. It focuses on simple, reoccurrent reminders with set time and date and nothing else. If you just need simple daily, weekly, monthly reminders that quack at you to make sure
Yes,
that you
I
remember
do.
to get that task done, then this is the app for you. The only thing this app is missing is the whole duck hunt thing. Like, I want to be able to shoot the duck to make it stop quacking.
It's
Would that
supposed
not
to be
amazing?
adorable, not violent, Ryan.
Well, that's where they're missing out on a key.
At the same time, I do
demographic.
agree that would be hilarious.
Yeah. Yes.
Speaking of the duck hunt, Ryan, I think Michael AI needs to be implemented in the duck hunt feature.
Yes.
We definitely got to put that in there.
Actually, I could probably fork their code and put it into Michael AI.
Yeah.
And then you have a picture of Michael that comes up and quacks at you. When you
Oh no.
Yeah. I love it.
Oh no. I dread this. I dread this idea.
Well, I like this little app.
Yeah, Reminduck looks pretty good. I think that it's interesting because it's both sleek and simple, and at the same time is a
Annoying
quacking
and cute
tool. Like it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I love the duck quacks in the text. I think that's cool. And the developer said he's working on the sounds too. Quack, quack.
Yeah. What's interesting is this is exactly how my wife describes me. Annoying
You're a
and
quack?
cute.
You're a quack?
Quack. Annoying and cute, but sure, quack.
Oh, okay. My bad.
You can use emojis in the reminders as well, which is a lot.
That is critical, people.
Yes. It's
Critical.
What about
absolutely
gifts?
critical for me.
Yes, can we have gifts? You're gonna
No
have to put a
gifts.
reminder in your Reminduck to add gifts to Reminduck.
Or if you're like me, it'd be GIFs.
How dare you?
Gifts.
Okay, we're going to stop the show right now, and we're going to discuss this GIF versus GIF debate right here because this is
The original creator said it's GIF.
Yes, but he
He was
also
joking
is
with
wrong.
us.
Because it's graphic, not giraffic. So,
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Graphics
Anyway.
interchange format.
Cupcakes better muffins. Go on.
Okay, we're going to stop the show right now. We're going to talk about muffins being better.
I'm going to pull this car around.
All right, let's go to the tip of the week. So this week we're going to be talking about, encryption and how to have a peace of mind with your encryption when you put it in the cloud. So saving things to the cloud gives you a lot of peace of mind in case if you have like a fire or disaster that happens to your current location where you physically are. You could lose photos and you could lose videos and documents and all that stuff if your machines are caught in a fire. So having a cloud access and having a remote location is definitely a good idea for your backups, especially for your most important stuff. However, cloud storage gets expensive. And if you want cloud storage with encryption, it's even more expensive. And in addition to that, there's a constant revolving door of whether or not you can trust the company who is storing your files and whether or not their encryption is legitimate or they just claim it is, because there have been companies in the past that have been shown that their encryption is not really safely encrypted. Right. Mm-hmm. So instead, we suggest the tip of the week to locally encrypt your files before you move them to the cloud. You can trust your own encryption methods and you will save money not paying for that extra fee that claims to have good encryption when they might not anyway. So by locally encrypting and then uploading your files, you can be certain that your files are safe from prying eyes. And with cloud providers, you should, instead focus on their security implementations, such as if they have good two-factor authentication, not using a mobile phone number, or privacy policies, or their emergency access capabilities in case you need to have someone get access to your documents and stuff like that. Like, for example, Bitwarden has an option where if you need to be able to, like in an emergency, give access to your accounts, you can do that. And that sort of thing is something you need to check out for these sorts of cloud services. Instead, now there's a lot of different tools to be able to encrypt locally. There's too many to name right now, but that's the main tip of the week is encrypt your files before you upload. That way you don't have to worry about if their encryption is legitimate or not.
Well, I do that in the cloud as well as locally on floppy disks. So
Jill has the perfect privacy, honestly.
Yeah, she has the floppy disk approach.
The floppy disk thing is just genius, Jill. I love that. In our events, we've got some really exciting events coming up. Fedora 37 Virtual Launch Party. Join the celebration. Learn all about all the new features that are coming in Fedora 37. You can register for this event. We will have a link in the show notes for that. But November 4th and 5th, put that on your calendar or in your Reminduck so that you can attend that and hang out with a bunch of other people who love the same thing that you love and learn all about Fedora 37. So I think that would be really fun. And next week, if you hadn't noticed, this is our 299th episode. I was doing the math, carrying the one, doing some multiplication, blah, blah, blah. Figured out next week is our 300th episode.
Woohoo!
Man, your calculations are impressive. That equation must have took so long.
Our 300th episode of Destination Link. Can you believe we have 300 episodes?
300
people tune in after 300 episodes of listening to us babble on about cupcakes, muffins, stools, chairs, all of this stuff. Like,
we appreciate you so much dealing with our nonsense for 300 episodes.
You're all saints,
Exactly.
We love you all.
Most of them. Okay, so next week is our 300th episode, and we're going to be giving away $300 in celebration to open source projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 open source projects. One, our patrons are going to pick, which we'll give $1.50 to. That's how the cool kids say $150. And then the other one will give $1.52 as well that we pick. So 2 open source projects next week in celebration. What better way to celebrate than to give the people, the developers, and others who make this show even possible? Because what would we have to talk about if they didn't do the cool things they do? Some money out there. So we'll put a poll up on the Patreon page for the patrons. Let us know what open source project you want us to give a donation to.
Absolutely. And if you are wondering about why you should join the patron post show and the virtual stadium, they're going to give us suggestions right after the show for what we're going to be donating to and putting in that poll. So there is a thing for this. That's why you need to be here live and in the patron post show stadium. I'm not sure what we call the stadium. Just the stadium. That's it.
The DOS Rock. The
DOS Rock.
Yeah. All right. So I think
rock.
we're also going to do some other celebration stuff. We might do some gaming. Me and Michael and Jill might do some game streaming afterwards, but we're definitely going to open up the Patron room next week so everyone can join.
We also have a thing that we're planning to do that Ryan's not aware of. And I'm just gonna tease it right here and say it's gonna be, it's not gonna be like a normal everyday episode 2. So we're gonna have some fun on it.
I know what
So
you're talking
be
about.
sure to watch episode 300 as well. I mean, if you can't make it live, that's okay. You can become a patron and get the unedited version, or you can just watch it as it comes out on YouTube. But you're going to want to watch
the patron thing. You're more annoying than a terminal ad. A big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. We're here every Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern,
goodness.
live on tuxdigital.com/live. And the best part, everyone is invited to watch the recording of Destination Linux each and every week. And we can't wait to see you in the chat.
Speaking of annoying, you can become a patron by going to tuxdigital.com/contribute. And you can hang out with us every week after the show in the patron-only post show. Plus, you get access to unedited versions of the show if you do miss the live stream. So there's all sorts of great perks. So go to tuxdigital.com/contribute. And if you want more advertisements, I have some for you because you can go right now to tuxdigital.com/store. You can pick up some great swag for Destination Linux. We have mugs, hoodies, t-shirts, hats, all sorts of great stuff, stickers, and nothing that Ryan picks up. That's just a normal thing he does, but no, none of that stuff. We also have tons of other great things for various other shows. So if you like Hardware Addicts or you like This Week in Linux, there's tons of great stuff. So check it out, tuxdigital.com/store.
Great for Christmas. If I'm thinking about
Christmas is right around the corner, Ryan.
In my life.
Absolutely.
It's right around the corner.
I'm going to the Tux Digital Store and I'm buying a bunch of swag for the loved ones in my life. What do you think my wife gets for Christmas every year? A Destination Linux t-shirt. That's what she gets.
I'm giving my brother and my nephew these coasters for Christmas.
Nice.
See?
Nice.
Yes. You get it.
Love it.
And make sure to check out all our awesome shows here on Tux Digital. We have the Sudo Show, This Week in Linux, the DOS Geek channel, Linux Out Loud, Hardware Addicts, GameSphere, and our virtual Linux user group, Linux Saloon. Everyone head to tuxdigital.com and subscribe to all these incredible shows. And don't forget to leave a rating on your favorite app, a thumbs up, so others can discover the power of open source and keep those penguins marching in the full Monty of Linux and open source awesome sauce. And everybody have a great week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Become a patron.
The journey itself is just as important as becoming a patron.
See, ads can really be annoying. That's the point of that. I feel like we really proved that point.